Okay, so I'm going to give you a talk, and I'm going to talk to you about satire. Now, you might have remembered getting a little bit of teaching about satire in advanced grades in high school. For me, the book was Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift, and it's, oh God, very old book, really. And what are we really talking about when it comes to satire? It's helping people see what is really happening in our world. And it's a form of artistic expression where we're not describing our world. What we're doing is we're using an alternative reality. It's a story about someplace else where things are just different. And so when you're immersing yourself in this other story, in this other reality, there are lots of reflections of us in this other reality. But they're not directly in front of your eyes for you to see. That's why, if you're learning satire, you need a good teacher. Because if you just read Gulliver's Travels without a good teacher to explain to you what's really reflected in our society in Gulliver's Travels, you wouldn't get it. You wouldn't get it. It's something that you really need some insight into. The reason that authors use this form of expression is because a lot of the things that are in our world, if you're just going to talk about them like, on a news magazine, or an analysis, a bunch of talking heads on like a political TV show, you're not really getting the story. You're getting, in a political bunch of commentators, talking heads talking about something. They're so focused on, the leaders, the world leaders. They're totally missing the context of what's really going on with the people. What's going on with the culture? What's going on with the art? So with satire, it's something that you have to look at from different angles. And there's so much richness in it. So it's, you maybe read the story just as a story. And then you're told the story is a satire. And then you've got to go and say, okay, so what are the hidden meanings in this story from another reality that are telling us what's going on in our reality? So you're going to have things like the symbolism of the characters' names. Juxtaposition. You're going to have certain characters that might be making fun of some situation or some other kind of character. So when you have something like this, then you have to look at it and say, who fits the bill in our reality of this particular situation? And some of the things that are in the satire are grossly exaggerated. So in Gulliver's Travels, Gulliver went to the world of the Lilliputians, and they were little tiny people. They were, tiny, like the size of a tiny mouse compared to giant Gulliver. And some of the stuff is farcical. It's just way out there. So when I'm talking about the meme that I'm talking about today, which is a shot of one of the characters from the movie Fight Club, Robert Paulson. If you haven't seen Fight Club, I encourage you to watch it, because it is all about pretty much the collapse of someone's ego. Why is that relevant to today? Whose egos are collapsing today? Don't look at me. The metaphysical writer Stuart Wilde said in his book, Whispering Winds of Change, that, and this book was, I'm going to say it was maybe in 1980. He said that in the time of 1980, that we were heading into the great collapse of the global ego. What's a global ego? It's the ego of the collective consciousness of humans. And what happens, well, you got to come to understand all this stuff about what happens with the collapse of the ego. And there's lots of literature that is perhaps hard to understand. In the Bible, the revelation was from John of Patmos. And John of Patmos, everything in Revelation was about the collapse of John's ego. Highly symbological, what do you call it? Full of symbology. And it's not easy to figure it out because it's all this symbology and you don't really understand it. But to understand the book of Revelation, you probably need to go and study the great psychiatrist Carl Jung. Everything about Jung has to do with symbolism, shadow traits, synchronicities, what he called individuation. It's a massive field. Why do you need to know it then? Because if the global ego is collapsing, the ego of the collective, it means your ego's gonna go with it too.